You probably think you know about World War II, the tanks crushing through enemy lines, the infantry pushing through bombed-out villages, the generals planning grand strategies over maps. But what you don't know is that the whole damn thing would have ground to a halt without trucks, and the men who drove them. Most people don't realise that for every combat soldier in World War II, there were 7 more people behind the scenes, making sure bullets, beans and gasoline got where they needed to go. And when the Allies finally broke out of Normandy in the summer of 1944, they created the greatest trucking operation in military history. They called it the Red Ball Express. Oh, and if you're enjoying these stories, I'd really appreciate a like or subscribe. Super curious where you're all listening from, so drop a comment with your location and what time it is there. Always blows my mind how people are falling asleep to this all over the world. Alright, let's head back to 1944. Trust me, it's going to be quite a ride. But first, get comfortable. Seriously, adjust those pillows, pull up that blanket, because where we're going, you're going to want to be cozy. So congratulations, you just woke up in 1944 and you're James Wilson, a 19-year-old kid from Cleveland, Ohio. Your eyes snap open at 0400 hours to the sound of a whistle blowing outside your tent. The canvas above you glows faintly grey in the pre-dawn light. The rough wool blanket scratches against your chin, a far cry from the soft sheets on your bed back home. The air smells of diesel fuel, wet canvas, and the faint tang of unwashed bodies. It's been raining all night. You can hear it pattering on the tent above you, and the ground beneath your cot has turned into a muddy soup. Unlike your warm, dry bed right now, everything in this world is damp, from your socks to your cigarettes. Wilson, on your feet, a voice barks from outside. You roll out of your cot, your boots splashing into half an inch of water that's pooled on the tent floor. Welcome to England, spring 1944. Welcome to the US Army Transportation Corps. 3 months ago, you were pumping gas at your uncle's filling station in Cleveland. Now you're part of the greatest military build-up in history as the Allied forces prepare to invade Nazi-occupied Europe. You didn't exactly choose this assignment. When the draft notice came, you reported dutifully to the induction center, where they gave you a battery of tests and interviews. Says here you worked at a gas station, the classification officer had said, not looking up from his clipboard. You know engines, drive trucks? Yes, sir, you'd replied, since I was 15. Good, Transportation Corps it is. And that was that. Not infantry, not tanks, not the glamorous Army Air Corps. You were going to be a truck driver. And though you didn't know it yet, you were about to become part of one of the most important operations of the entire war. The training was intense, learning to drive the enormous 2.5-ton GMC CCKW trucks, Jimmy, or Deuce and a Half as everyone called them, was nothing like driving your uncle's Ford pickup. These monsters weighed 5 tons empty, had 6 wheels with dual drive, and a peculiar double-clutch transmission that fought you every inch of the way. The first time you tried to shift gears, the grinding sound made your instructor wince. Jesus, son, he'd said, you trying to turn this transmission into scrap metal, double clutch it. You got better. You learned to double clutch. You learned to drive in blackout conditions with only the dim cat eyes of the truck in front of you visible. You learned to change a tyre in the pouring rain, to replace a fan belt, to dig a truck out when it got stuck in mud up to its axles. And you learned something else, something unspoken but understood. In your company of 200 drivers, 150 were black, like you. The mechanics were white, the officers were white, the combat troops you'd be supplying were white. The US Army in 1944 was segregated, and the Transportation Corps was where they put most of the black soldiers, not trusted to fight, but trusted to drive, to haul, to labour. We're going to prove them wrong, your friend Davis told you one night as you sat on your bunks polishing boots. We're going to show them what we can do. And now, as you splash through the mud toward the mess tent, the smell of burned coffee and powdered eggs wafting through the damp morning air, that's exactly what you intend to do. After breakfast, rubbery powdered eggs, toast and coffee so strong it could dissolve a spoon, you report to the motor pool. Today is the day you've been training for. The invasion of Europe is coming, and your company is being assigned to the massive buildup of supplies and equipment that will follow the first wave. Your sergeant, a stocky man from Georgia named Harris, stands in front of a row of GMC trucks, their olive drab paint still shiny and new. The front of each truck sports the white star of the US Army. Behind them are stacks of crates, tires, fuel drums and ammunition boxes, all waiting to be loaded. "Listen up," Harris barks, his voice cutting through the drizzle. "These trucks are your new home, your new best friend, your new wife. You will treat them better than all three. You will know every sound they make, every quirk they have. You will be able to fix them in the dark, in the rain, under fire, if necessary." He paces in front of the line of drivers. "When we hit the continent, these trucks will be the lifeblood of the entire operation. Without us, the infantry doesn't get bullets, the tanks don't get fuel, nobody gets food, nobody gets medical supplies. We are the backbone, gentlemen, the unsung heroes, and don't you forget it." You're assigned truck number 4077, a brand new GMC CCKW 353 with an open cab and a canvas top. The steering wheel is huge, the seat hard as stone, but when you start it up, the 270 cubic inch inline-six engine rumbles to life with a healthy growl. 6 cylinders, 104 horsepower. Not a race car, but enough to haul 5,000 pounds of cargo over just about any terrain. The next few weeks are a blur of activity, loading supplies onto ships, practicing driving onto and off of landing craft, convoy training, maintenance checks, and then, suddenly, it's June 5th and the word comes down, the invasion begins tomorrow. You don't sleep that night. Nobody does. You sit on your cot, writing a letter to your mother, telling her you're fine, that you miss her cooking, that you'll be home before she knows it. You don't mention that tomorrow you'll be heading into the biggest military operation in history. You don't mention how scared you are. D-Day, June 6, 1944, dawns grey and stormy. Your truck company isn't in the first wave. You'll follow a few days later, once the beachhead is secure, but you listen to the radio reports, hear about the massive casualties on Omaha Beach, and wonder what you're in for. 3 days later, you find out. Your LST landing ship tank grinds to a halt on the sandy beach of Normandy. The front ramp drops and you drive your truck down into water that comes halfway up the doors. The engine sputters but keeps running as you gun it through the surf and onto the beach. What you see takes your breath away. The beach is a hive of activity. Trucks, jeeps, bulldozers, all moving in seemingly chaotic patterns. Further up, engineers are building temporary roads. MPs direct traffic at improvised intersections. And everywhere, there are signs of the recent battle. Wrecked landing craft, abandoned equipment, even some bodies that haven't yet been collected. "Keep moving," an MP shouts, waving you forward. "Clear the beach. Go." You drive up a steep, sandy track that's been cut into the bluff overlooking the beach. At the top, you join a convoy of trucks heading inland. You've made it to France. The real work is about to begin. For the next few weeks, your life settles into a routine. Wake up before dawn, maintenance check on your truck, breakfast if you're lucky, then load up with whatever supplies are priority that day. Ammunition, rations, fuel, medical supplies, and head for the front lines or as close as truck convoys are allowed to get. The Norman countryside is beautiful, even scarred by war. Hedgerows line the narrow roads, thick, ancient barriers of earth and vegetation that have turned the region into a deadly maze for the advancing Allied forces. The roads themselves are barely wide enough for your truck, with deep ditches on either side. When you pass another vehicle coming the other way, you hold your breath, certain you'll either sideswipe them or end up in the ditch. The front lines in these early days aren't far from the beaches, just a few dozen miles, but it takes hours to make the trip, navigating bombed-out roads, military checkpoints, and occasional enemy artillery fire. The Germans, retreating but still dangerous, have a nasty habit of shelling crossroads and bridges. You learn to recognize the sound of incoming artillery, a distant crump followed by a growing whistle. When you hear it, you dive for the nearest ditch, regardless of how muddy or filthy it is. Better muddy than dead. By early July, things are changing. The Allied forces have been slugging it out in the Norman hedgerows for weeks, making painfully slow progress. But then, on July 25th, something changes. Operation Cobra, a massive Allied offensive, finally breaks through the German lines near St. Lo. And suddenly, the static, grinding battle becomes a war of movement. General Patton's Third Army, now freed from the hedgerow country, begins to race across France, sometimes covering 40 or 50 miles in a day. And with that rapid advance comes a massive logistical problem: how to keep these fast-moving forces supplied. That's where you come in. On August 21st, 1944, your company is assembled, along with dozens of others from the Transportation Corps. A colonel you've never seen before stands on the hood of a jeep, addressing the gathered drivers. "Gentlemen," he shouts, his voice carrying over the idling engines, "what I'm about to tell you is of the utmost importance to the Allied war effort. Our forces are advancing faster than anyone predicted. That's the good news. The bad news is that they're outrunning their supply lines. General Patton's tanks are literally running out of gas. His men are running out of food and ammunition." He pauses, looking out over the sea of faces. "We're creating a special trucking operation to solve this problem, a non-stop, round-the-clock convoy system that will run from the beaches to the front lines. We're calling it the Red Ball Express." Red Ball is an old railroad term. It means express shipment, highest priority. Murmurs run through the crowd. "This won't be easy," the colonel continues. "You'll be driving day and night, minimal breaks, maximum loads. The roads will be reserved exclusively for Red Ball traffic. We need to deliver 10,000 tons of supplies every day to keep the advance moving." You glance at Davis, standing next to you. His eyes are wide. 10,000 tons, he whispers. "Is that even possible?" The colonel is still talking. "Your trucks will be marked with red dots. The routes will be marked with red signs. Military police will be stationed at key intersections to keep the convoys moving. You'll drive in pairs. One man drives while the other sleeps. Then you switch. No stopping except for fuel, maintenance, or loading and unloading." He looks out over the crowd again, his face grave. "What you're about to undertake has never been done before, but it must be done, or this offensive will grind to a halt. The outcome of the war might very well rest on your shoulders, on your ability to keep these trucks rolling no matter what." That night, as you sit in your tent cleaning your rifle, even truck drivers are issued M1 carbines, the roads aren't always safe, Davis comes in and sits on his cot across from you. "You heard what the other companies are calling us?" he asks. You shake your head. "The glamour boys," he says with a wry smile. "Because we get all the glory." You both laugh. There's nothing glamorous about being a truck driver in this man's army. It's dirty, exhausting, dangerous work, but now, suddenly, it's also vital. The next morning, you report to the loading area at dawn. Your truck has been freshly serviced, the canvas top removed to allow for higher stacking of cargo. A large red dot has been painted on the bumper and on both sides. Inside the cab, you find a mimeographed sheet of paper titled Red Ball Express Regulations. It's a long list of do's and don'ts. Maintain 60-yard intervals between vehicles, top speed 25 miles per hour, no passing, no stopping except at designated areas, blackout driving at night, keep your weapon ready at all times. At the bottom, in bold letters, keep 'em rolling. The loading goes quickly, handled by a swarm of service troops. Your truck is filled with jerry cans of gasoline, 5-gallon metal containers that slosh as they're stacked in the back. You count them as they go in. 96 cans, 480 gallons of precious fuel destined for the tanks and vehicles of Patton's Third Army. Davis is assigned as your driving partner. He climbs into the cab beside you, his rifle propped between his knees. Ready for this? He asks. You nod, trying to look more confident than you feel. Red Ball Express, you say, testing the words. Has a nice ring to it. The convoy forms up, dozens of trucks stretching as far as you can see in both directions. An MP stands at the head of the line, holding a flag. At precisely 0600 hours, he drops it, and the convoy lurches into motion. The Red Ball Express is rolling. The first few hours are uneventful. The roads close to the Normandy beaches are well maintained, widened by Army engineers to accommodate the massive flow of traffic. MPs stand at every intersection, waving you through without stopping. Your convoy maintains a steady pace, the trucks ahead visible through the dust they kick up from the unpaved sections of road. Around noon, you pull into a designated refueling point. Service troops swarm over the trucks, filling gas tanks, checking oil, making minor repairs. You and Davis have exactly 20 minutes to use the latrine, gulp down some cold coffee and a K-ration lunch, and then you're back on the road. As the day wears on, the roads get worse. Further from the beaches, there's been less time for the engineers to work their magic. You navigate around bomb craters, through villages with streets barely wide enough for your truck, across bridges hastily repaired after being blown up by retreating Germans. The dust is incredible. It coats everything. Your skin, your uniform, the inside of your mouth. It forms a thick paste with your sweat, caking in the creases of your elbows and neck. You've been issued goggles, but they fog up in the summer heat, so you push them up onto your helmet, squinting against the grit instead. By late afternoon, you're deep into what was, until recently, German-held territory. Signs of fighting are everywhere. Burned-out German vehicles, shattered buildings, fields cratered by artillery shells. Occasionally, you pass groups of German prisoners being marched toward the rear, guarded by American infantrymen. The Germans stare at the convoy with dull eyes. Some look relieved to be out of the fighting. Others glare with undisguised hatred. One, a tall officer with a bandaged head, watches your truck pass and then spits in the dust. Charming folks, Davis mutters. As dusk approaches, you reach your first destination, a supply dump about 10 miles behind the front lines. The area is a hive of activity, trucks unloading, forklifts moving pallets of supplies, soldiers sorting ammunition, rations, medical supplies into piles. The sound of distant artillery fire provides a constant background rumble. An officer checks your manifest and directs you to an unloading area. Service troops swarm over your truck, efficiently removing the jerry cans of gasoline and stacking them in pyramids. How far to the next stop? You ask the sergeant supervising the unloading. About 30 miles, he says. But it'll take you 4 hours in the dark. Roads are shit and you'll be driving blackout. blackout driving. You've practiced it in training, but doing it for real in potentially hostile territory is another matter entirely. As the last of the gasoline is unloaded, you check your watch. 2100 hours. You should reach the next supply dump around 0100 if all goes well. You and Davis switch places. He'll drive the first leg while you try to get some sleep, then you'll take over. It's almost impossible to sleep in the bouncing, jolting truck, but you've learned to grab rest whenever you can. The sun sets as the convoy reforms and the world transforms. Gone is the dusty, sun-baked landscape of daytime. In its place, a realm of shadows and muted sounds. The only illumination comes from the stars overhead and the dim glow of your truck's blackout lights. Heavily hooded headlamps that cast just enough light to see a few feet ahead but can't be spotted from above by enemy aircraft. Davis drives slowly, hunched forward over the wheel, straining to see the road. You can just make out the cat eyes of the truck ahead, tiny slits of red light that indicate its position. If you can see all four cat eyes clearly, you're too close. If they blur into two, you're at the right distance. If you can only see one fuzzy light, you're falling too far behind. The convoy creeps along at 15 miles per hour, the trucks maintaining their precise intervals. It's maddening how slowly you're moving, but there's no alternative. One wrong turn in the dark could send a truck plunging into a ditch or, worse, into a minefield that hasn't been cleared. Around midnight, you take over driving duties from Davis. He's exhausted, his eyes red-rimmed from straining to see in the dark. You're not much better, but you've managed to doze fitfully for a couple of hours. Watch out for the curves, Davis mumbles as he settles into the passenger seat. There's a bad one, about 5 miles ahead. You nod, gripping the wheel tightly. The truck feels different at night, more alive somehow, more temperamental. Every bump, every shift in the road surface communicates itself through the steering wheel to your hands. The darkness is almost complete now, clouds having moved in to obscure the stars. Rain begins to fall, light at first, then heavier. The windshield wipers struggle to keep up, squeaking rhythmically across the glass. Through the rain-streaked windshield, you can just make out the cat eyes of the truck ahead. You adjust your speed, trying to maintain the proper interval. Too close is dangerous. Too far, and you risk losing sight of the convoy entirely. The road narrows, winding through a dense forest. Tree branches scrape against the sides of the truck, a sound like fingernails on metal. The rain intensifies, drumming on the roof of the cab, and then, suddenly, the cat eyes ahead disappear. You blink, wondering if your tired eyes are playing tricks on you, but no, the red lights are gone. Has the truck ahead turned off the road? Has it stopped, or are you simply too far behind? You slow down, peering into the darkness. Nothing but rain and shadows. "Davis," you say, nudging your partner. "Wake up! I've lost the convoy." Davis jerks awake, instantly alert. "How long ago?" "Just now. The cat eyes were there, and then they weren't." He leans forward, searching the darkness. "Slow down more. They might have taken a turn." You ease off the gas, the truck crawling forward at barely more than walking pace. The road curves sharply to the left, and as you round the bend, you see them, the familiar red glow of cat eyes, not from one truck, but from dozens, all stopped in a long line. "Something's wrong," Davis says. "The convoy's stopped." You pull up behind the last truck and set the brake. Davis grabs his rifle and slides out of the cab. You follow, the rain immediately soaking through your uniform. Walking alongside the line of trucks, you can hear voices ahead, muffled by the rain. As you get closer, you make out a knot of drivers gathered around something in the road. It's a bridge, or what's left of one. The stone span has been blown, leaving only the support pillars standing in the rushing water below. Engineers are already at work, unloading timber and steel beams from specialized trucks. How long? Someone asks. 4 hours? Minimum, an engineer officer replies. Probably more in this rain. 4 hours. That means you won't reach the next supply dump until well after dawn. The schedule is already slipping. On the very first run of the Red Ball Express, you and Davis make your way back to your truck. Might as well try to get some sleep, he says. Going to be a long night. You climb into the cab, soaked to the skin and bone-tired. But as you settle into the hard seat, you can't help but think of what lies ahead. Hundreds of miles of dangerous roads, thousands of tons of vital supplies, an entire army depending on you and your fellow drivers. The Red Bull Express is just beginning. And somehow you know that this night, this rain, this destroyed bridge, this delay is just the first of many challenges to come. But for now, as the rain drums on the roof of the cab and the engineers work to build a temporary bridge, you close your eyes. Tomorrow will come soon enough, and with it, another day of keeping the Red Ball rolling. You wake with a jolt as someone pounds on the door of the truck cab. Grey dawn light filters through the rain-streaked windshield. Your neck is stiff from sleeping upright, and your uniform is still damp from last night's downpour. We're moving out. It's Davis, his face haggard from lack of sleep. Engineers got the bridge fixed about an hour ago. First trucks are already across. You blink the grit from your eyes and straighten up. What time is it? 05:30. We're 4 hours behind schedule. You nod, reaching for the canteen of water tucked beside your seat. You take a long swig, swishing it around to clear the taste of dust and fatigue from your mouth. 4 hours might not sound like much, but in the precisely scheduled machinery of the Red Ball Express, it's an eternity. The line of trucks begins to move. You start the engine, listening carefully to its rhythm. The Jimmy trucks are reliable, but they have their quirks. A slight change in the engine note can signal trouble long before any warning lights come on. This morning, thankfully, the engine purrs steadily. Ahead, you can see trucks slowly crossing a hastily constructed timber bridge. Army engineers have worked through the night, using logs and metal beams to create a span strong enough to support the weight of fully loaded 2.5-ton trucks. It doesn't look pretty, but it's solid enough. When your turn comes, you edge the truck forward cautiously. The temporary bridge creaks and shifts slightly under your weight. The rushing water below is visible through gaps in the planking. Your knuckles are white on the steering wheel as you ease across, but the bridge holds. On the other side, the convoy picks up speed. You settle into the rhythm of the road, watching the truck ahead, maintaining your interval. The rain has stopped, but the roads are still slick with mud. Every so often, a truck slides off into the ditch, and the entire convoy grinds to a halt while it's winched back onto the road. By mid-morning, you reach the forward supply dump where you were supposed to have arrived last night. It's a scene of controlled chaos, trucks coming and going, soldiers unloading supplies, officers consulting maps and shouting orders. The air is thick with dust and diesel fumes. Your cargo of gasoline is quickly unloaded, and almost immediately your truck is refilled with ammunition. Heavy wooden crates of artillery shells bound for the front. Hell of a night, huh? The supply sergeant checks off items on his clipboard as the last crate is loaded. You boys are running behind. Blown bridge, you explain. Had to wait for the engineers. He nods. Well, you better make up time. Word is, Patton's tanks are running on fumes. And he's raising hell about it. He checks his watch. Your convoy's pulling out in 10 minutes. Just enough time to hit the latrine and grab some chow if you're quick. 10 minutes. Barely enough time to relieve yourself and gulp down a cup of coffee and a cold biscuit. No time to wash, to shave, to change your damp socks. That's life on the Red Ball Express. Back on the road, the convoy heads east. The landscape is changing. The hedgerow country of Normandy is giving way to more open terrain, rolling farmland punctuated by small villages. Many of these villages show signs of recent fighting, shattered buildings, craters in the streets, the occasional burned-out German vehicle. In one village, the convoy slows to a crawl. French civilians line the streets, cheering and waving. Children run alongside the trucks, holding up their hands for candy or gum. An old man with tears streaming down his face holds up a bottle of wine, offering it to passing drivers. A young woman tosses a flower that lands on your hood. "Nice to be appreciated," Davis says from the passenger seat. You nod, but your mind is elsewhere. 4 years. These people lived under Nazi occupation for 4 years. What was that like? You think of your own neighborhood back in Cleveland. Imagine it under enemy control. The thought is almost impossible to grasp. The convoy leaves the village behind, accelerating back to its steady pace. The day wears on. Heat builds in the cab, the metal roof amplifying the summer sun. Sweat trickles down your back, soaking your already damp uniform. The smell in the cab is ripe, a mixture of sweat, fuel, oil, and dust that clings to everything. Around mid-afternoon, you switch places with Davis. He takes the wheel while you try to catch some sleep. It's nearly impossible in the bouncing, swaying truck, but you've learned to grab rest whenever you can. You doze fitfully, jolting awake at every hard bump or sudden stop. When you open your eyes again, the sun is low in the sky, casting long shadows across the landscape. Davis is still driving, his face a mask of concentration. He looks exhausted. "How long was I out?" you ask. "About 2 hours," he says, not taking his eyes off the road. "We're almost to the next supply point. Should be there before dark." You straighten up, rolling your shoulders to ease the stiffness. "Any problems?" "Truck 3 vehicles ahead through a fan belt. Had to stop for 15 minutes while they replaced it, otherwise smooth sailing." The convoy reaches the supply point just as twilight is setting in. This one is closer to the front. You can hear the distant rumble of artillery more clearly now. The supply dump is well camouflaged, with trucks and supplies dispersed under trees to avoid detection by enemy aircraft. While your truck is being unloaded, a jeep pulls up. An officer steps out, a captain with Transportation Corps insignia. He looks harried. "Gather round," he calls to the drivers. "I've got new orders." You and the other drivers form a loose circle around him. "Change of plans," the captain says. "Third Army has advanced faster than expected. They're now 20 miles beyond their projected position. That means we need to push further east tonight." A murmur runs through the group. Night driving is challenging enough on familiar roads. Pushing into new territory, possibly with enemy forces still around, is another level of risk entirely. "I know you're tired," the captain continues, "but this is what the Red Ball Express was created for. Those men at the front need these supplies or the whole advance stalls. We'll be providing you with updated maps and route markers. You'll also have armed escorts, a jeep with a .50 caliber machine gun at the front and rear of each convoy section." He pauses, looking at the faces around him. "I don't need to tell you how important this is. The success of this offensive depends on you getting these supplies through. Any questions? There are none. What is there to ask? The job is the job. All right then, grab some chow, check your vehicles, and be ready to move out at 2100 hours. Food is served from field kitchens, hot for once, but barely edible. Meatloaf of indeterminate origin, powdered potatoes, canned peas. Still, it's better than K-rations, and you eat every bite. Who knows when you'll get hot food again? As darkness falls, the convoy prepares to move out. Your truck has been loaded with medical supplies this time. Plasma, bandages, sulfur drugs, morphine. Precious cargo bound for the field hospitals that follow the advancing front. You check and double-check your truck. Oil level, tire pressure, fuel, blackout lights. The smallest issue can become a major problem 20 miles down the road, in the dark, in hostile territory. At precisely 2100 hours, the convoy begins to move. You're driving the first leg, with Davis trying to sleep beside you. The familiar routine begins again. The dim cat eyes of the truck ahead, the careful spacing, the constant vigilance. The roads are unfamiliar now, twisting through terrain that just days ago was in German hands. Occasionally you pass burned-out German vehicles, tanks, trucks, artillery pieces, pushed to the side of the road by American bulldozers, clearing the way for the advance. Around midnight, a light rain begins to fall, not the drenching downpour of the previous night, but a fine mist that makes the blackout driving even more challenging. The windshield fogs up and you have to keep wiping it clear with your sleeve. "This is insane," Davis mutters beside you. He's given up on sleeping and now sits upright, peering into the gloom. Can barely see the road, let alone the truck ahead. "Keep your eyes on the cat eyes," you say, repeating what your instructors told you in training. As long as you can see them, you're good, but the cat eyes are getting harder to see through the mist. You slow down slightly, straining to make out the dim red glow. Too slow, and you risk losing the convoy. Too fast, and you might rear-end the truck ahead when it makes a sudden stop. The convoy winds through a dense forest, the road barely wide enough for your truck. Tree branches scrape against the sides of the cab, an eerie fingernail-on-metal sound that sets your teeth on edge. And then, suddenly, the cat eyes ahead disappear. "Damn it," you mutter, slowing even further. "Lost visual." "They probably went around a curve," Davis says, leaning forward. "Keep going, but slow." You creep forward, heart pounding. Losing the convoy in unfamiliar, potentially hostile territory is every driver's nightmare. Without the guide of the truck ahead, you could take a wrong turn, drive into a ditch, or worse, stumble into a German patrol. The road curves sharply to the right, and with relief, you spot the cat eyes again, now stopped in a line ahead. The convoy has halted for some reason. You pull up behind the last truck and set the brake. Davis grabs his carbine from beside the seat. "Stay here," he says. "I'll find out what's going on." He disappears into the darkness. You sit tense and alert, one hand on the wheel, the other near your own weapon. The rain taps softly on the roof of the cab. Somewhere in the distance, a machine gun chatters briefly, then falls silent. 5 minutes pass. 10. Where is Davis? You're about to go looking for him when he materializes out of the darkness, climbing back into the cab. "Road's blocked," he says, breathing hard. "German roadblock about half a mile ahead. They've got a couple of machine guns and some kind of anti-tank weapon." Your mouth goes dry. "Germans? I thought they'd all retreated." "Seems like a rear guard. Maybe got cut off during the advance. Captain says they've radioed for support, but it could be hours before anyone gets here." "So we wait?" Davis shakes his head. "No time. Those supplies need to get through. They're sending a patrol to flank the roadblock. See if they can clear it. Rest of us need to be ready to move as soon as they do." You nod, trying to ignore the knot of fear in your stomach. You're a truck driver, not an infantryman. You've heard gunfire, seen the aftermath of battles, but you've never been under direct fire yourself. "What do we do if the patrol can't clear it?" you ask. Davis doesn't answer immediately. Then he says, "Captain mentioned there's a secondary route. Longer, rougher, but it would bypass the roadblock. We'll only use it if we have to, though. Already behind schedule as it is." Time crawls by. The rain increases, drumming harder on the roof. You find yourself listening intently, trying to distinguish the sound of gunfire from the rain, from the distant rumble of artillery, from the creaking of the truck as it settles on its springs. Then you hear it, a sharp crack, followed by the stuttering roar of a Thompson submachine gun. More cracks. rifle fire, the hollow boom of a grenade. The sounds seem to go on forever, though in reality it's probably only a few minutes. Then silence. You and Davis exchange glances, waiting. The rain continues to fall. Finally, a figure appears out of the darkness, moving down the line of trucks. It's the convoy commander, his helmet glistening with rain. "Roadblocks clear," he says tersely. "3 Krauts dead, the rest ran off, probably heading back to their own lines. Keep your eyes peeled, though. There might be more of them around." The convoy lurches back into motion. As you pass the site of the roadblock, you can just make out dark shapes by the side of the road, bodies covered with ponchos, a machine gun nest now silent, a tree splintered by gunfire. "Poor bastards," Davis murmurs. "War was over for them, they just didn't know it yet." You drive on through the night, the rhythm of the road lulling you into a sort of trance. The rain eventually stops, the clouds part, revealing a sky speckled with stars. In the east, a faint lightening indicates the approach of dawn. Around 0400, Davis takes over driving duties. You lean back in the passenger seat, intending to get some sleep, but your mind is too active. You keep thinking about the roadblock, the German soldiers who died there. Were they fanatics, fighting to the last for Hitler, or just ordinary men caught up in a retreat trying to slow down the Allied advance so their comrades could escape? You'll never know. Just another small episode in a vast war, but it underscores the reality of your situation. The Red Ball Express isn't just about driving trucks, it's about pushing into hostile territory, facing dangers that go beyond bad roads and mechanical failures. Dawn breaks fully as the convoy reaches its destination, a forward supply dump that just days ago was 20 miles behind German lines. The area is a hive of activity, with tanks and other armoured vehicles lined up for refuelling, infantry units drawing ammunition and rations, medical teams collecting the supplies you've brought. As your truck is unloaded, a tank crew approaches. They're filthy, exhausted-looking men, their faces streaked with dust and oil, their eyes red-rimmed from lack of sleep. But they're grinning. "You Red Ball boys?" one of them asks, a sergeant with 3 days' growth of beard shadowing his face. You nod. "Damn good to see you," he says. "We've been running on fumes for the last 20 miles. Another day without gas, and we'd have been sitting ducks." He offers you a crumpled pack of cigarettes. You take one, even though you don't normally smoke. It seems like the right thing to do. "How's it going up there?" Davis asks, nodding toward the east, toward the front lines. The sergeant's grin widens. "Krauts are running like hell. We're moving so fast, we're capturing their breakfast before they can eat it." He laughs, then grows more serious. "But we can't keep it up without supplies. That's where you fellas come in." He claps you on the shoulder, then moves on with his crew. You watch them go, feeling an unexpected surge of pride. Maybe you're not charging enemy lines in a tank or storming beaches under fire, but you're part of this too, a vital part. After unloading, your convoy is directed to a temporary camp for rest. 6 hours, then back on the road. It's not much, but it's better than nothing. Exhaustion hits you like a physical blow as you climb down from the cab. The camp is little more than a collection of pup tents in a field, with a few larger tents serving as mess hall and command post. A field kitchen is set up serving powdered eggs and coffee that tastes like it was made yesterday. You wolf it down anyway, too tired to care about the taste. "Wilson Davis," a voice calls. It's Sergeant Harris, the stocky NCO from Georgia who's been with your unit since training. Your truck needs maintenance, fan belt's looking worn, and you've got a slow leak in the right front tyre. Get it fixed before you rack out. You suppress a groan. All you want is sleep, but the sergeant's right. A breakdown on the road would be far worse than missing an hour of rest. You and Davis trudge to the makeshift motor pool where mechanics are already swarming over the convoy's trucks. Despite your fatigue, you pitch in, helping to change the fan belt and patch the tire. The mechanics are overwhelmed. Too many trucks, too little time, and driver assistance is not just appreciated but expected. By the time you finish, the eastern sky is darkening with storm clouds. The weather, like everything else in this war, seems to be conspiring against you, but the Red Ball Express doesn't stop for rain or mud or darkness. As you finally crawl into your pup tent, the first fat drops of rain begin to fall. You lie on your bedroll, listening to the rain drumming on the canvas, feeling every ache in your body. 2 days on the Red Ball Express, and you're already pushed to your limits. And this is just the beginning. You still awake? Davis's voice comes from the tent next to yours. Yeah, you reply. You think we can keep this up? This pace? You consider the question, the exhaustion, the danger, the relentless demands of the schedule. It seems impossible to maintain, and yet the alternative, letting the advance stall, extending the war, is unthinkable. We have to, you say, finally. No choice. Davis is quiet for a moment. Then he says, "Did you see those tankers' faces when we rolled in with the fuel, like we were delivering Christmas?" You smile in the darkness. "Yeah, I saw." Makes it worth it, doesn't it? Knowing we're making a difference. "Yeah," you say again, feeling sleep finally beginning to claim you. It does. As you drift off, the rain continues to fall, and somewhere to the east, the war rolls on, carried forward on the wheels of the Red Ball Express. The rain is still falling when Sergeant Harris kicks the bottom of your tent at 1300 hours. You've had less than 6 hours of sleep, but it feels like barely minutes. Your uniform is still damp, your muscles ache, and your eyes burn from exhaustion. But the Red Ball Express waits for no one. "Up and at 'em, Wilson," Harris barks. "Chow in 10 minutes, convoy rolls in 30. You drag yourself upright, feeling twice your 19 years. Davis looks no better when you meet him at the mess tent, his eyes bloodshot, his movements stiff. Neither of you speaks much as you shovel down beans and spam from your mess kits. Words require energy you don't have to spare. The rain has turned the temporary camp into a quagmire. Mud sucks at your boots as you slosh toward the motor pool. Your truck sits waiting, already loaded with artillery shells. The mechanics have been busy, new fan belt installed, tire patched, oil topped up. You do a quick walk around anyway. On the Red Ball, you learn fast to trust no one but yourself when it comes to your truck. By 1330, the convoy is formed up and ready to move. This time, you're heading north rather than east, toward the British sector of the front where Montgomery's forces are facing heavy German resistance. The rain continues to fall steadily, transforming the dirt roads into ribbons of mud. "This is gonna be fun," Davis mutters as he slides into the passenger seat. He's not driving the first leg this time. After observing his fatigue earlier, you volunteered to take the wheel. "Just try to get some sleep," you tell him. "I'll wake you when it's your turn." The convoy lurches into motion, tires spinning in the mud before finding purchase. Immediately, you sense something wrong with your truck. There's a new vibration coming through the steering wheel, a subtle shimmy that wasn't there before. You frown, trying to diagnose the problem. Wheel alignment, tie rod, or just the rough road. Whatever it is, you'll have to deal with it. Stopping now isn't an option. The going is painfully slow. In some sections, the mud is axle deep, forcing the trucks to crawl along in first gear. Twice, trucks ahead of you get stuck and have to be winched out by recovery vehicles. Each time, the entire convoy halts, the schedule slipping further behind. The landscape has changed again. The roads wind through low hills now, with dense forests pressing in from both sides. Perfect ambush country. You find yourself scanning the tree lines constantly, looking for any sign of movement, any hint of danger. Your carbine rests on the seat between you and Davis, within easy reach. 3 hours into the journey, the convoy stops again. This time, it's not a stuck truck, but a destroyed bridge, the third you've encountered since the Red Bull Express began. As the drivers gather at the edge of a small river, you can see that this bridge wasn't blown by retreating Germans, but washed out by the recent heavy rains. The center span has collapsed into the swollen river below. The convoy commander confers with his maps and with the engineers who accompany the Red Bull convoys specifically for situations like this. There's no quick fix this time. The river is too wide, too fast to build a temporary bridge quickly. We'll have to detour, the commander announces. There's another crossing about 5 miles upstream. It's a small bridge. We'll have to cross one truck at a time, but intelligence says it's intact. One truck at a time. With nearly 40 trucks in your section of the convoy, that means hours of delay, more slippage in the already tight schedule, but there's no alternative. The convoy backtracks, then turns onto an even narrower road that parallels the river. This road is barely more than a farm track, rutted and overgrown. Tree branches scrape against the sides of your truck. In places, the mud is so deep that even in first gear, with the transfer case in low range, the truck struggles for traction. Some road, Davis says. He's awake now, bracing himself against the dashboard as the truck bounces and slews through the mud. Reminds me of logging trails back home in Oregon. You worked logging, you ask, surprised. In 2 months of driving together, neither of you has shared much about your civilian lives. Davis nods. 2 summers during high school. My old man was a faller, a guy who cuts down the trees. I drove a lumber truck. He smiles slightly. Not so different from this, except the logs didn't shoot back. You laugh, the first real laugh you've had in days. I learned to drive at my uncle's gas station, you tell him. Started washing cars when I was 13, then pumping gas. By 15, I was driving the tow truck. Guess we were both headed for this, Davis says, gesturing at the truck around you. The conversation lapses as you focus on navigating a particularly nasty stretch of road. The rain has eased to a drizzle, but the damage is done. The road is a mess, churned to a soup by the trucks ahead of you. Finally, the convoy reaches the alternate bridge. It's a simple stone structure, ancient-looking and narrow. Engineers are already inspecting it, checking its strength. After a tense wait, they give the go-ahead. The bridge is sound, but only one truck can cross at a time. The crossing begins. One by one, the trucks ahead of you ease onto the bridge, cross the rushing river, and disappear up the road on the far side. The process is agonizingly slow. Each truck takes about 2 minutes to cross, which means you're looking at over an hour of waiting. You use the time to check your truck more thoroughly. That vibration in the steering is still there. You crawl under the front end, mud soaking through your uniform, and check the tie rod ends and ball joints. Everything seems tight. Perhaps it's just a balance issue with one of the tires. Nothing to be done about that here. When your turn finally comes, you approach the bridge with caution. It's barely wider than your truck. There can't be more than 6 inches of clearance on either side. You edge forward slowly, feeling the ancient stones shift slightly under your weight. The river churns below, swollen and angry with the recent rains. Halfway across, you hear a sharp crack. The truck lurches, tilting slightly to the right. Davis swears, grabbing the dashboard. "What was that?" he asks, voice tight. "Don't know," you say through clenched teeth. Bridge settling, maybe. You keep going, fighting the urge to accelerate. The far side of the bridge seems a mile away. Another crack, another lurch. Something is giving way beneath you. Go, 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 Davis urges. You press down on the accelerator, the truck surging forward. The rear wheels hit a section of collapsing stonework, skidding briefly before finding purchase. And then you're across, the truck bouncing onto solid ground on the far bank. You pull to the side of the road and stop, heart hammering in your chest. Looking back, you can see that a section of the bridge's stone parapet has collapsed into the river. Engineers are already swarming over the structure, assessing the damage. An officer approaches your truck. "Bridge is compromised," he says grimly. "You were the last one across. Rest of the convoy will have to find another route." You exchange glances with Davis. Your section of the convoy, 15 trucks, is now cut off from the rest. No escort vehicles, no support. "Orders, sir?" you ask. "Continue to the supply point," the officer says. "We'll rendezvous there when the rest of the convoy gets through. Shouldn't be more than a few hours delay." He doesn't sound convinced. Your reduced convoy sets off again, now just 15 trucks instead of 40. The feeling is different, more exposed, more vulnerable. The usual rhythm of the Red Ball Express has been disrupted, and everyone feels it. The afternoon wears on, the rain stops completely, and the sun even makes a brief appearance between clouds. The roads improve somewhat as you leave the river valley behind, allowing the convoy to pick up speed. By late afternoon, you're making good time across rolling farmland. Then the sound of aircraft engines fills the air. "Plane!" someone shouts, and the convoy immediately pulls over. SOP, standard operating procedure, is to disperse the trucks and seek cover when aircraft are heard. German air power has been largely neutralized in this sector, but no one wants to take chances. You drive your truck off the road and under a stand of trees, cutting the engine. Davis already has his binoculars out, scanning the sky. "There," he says, pointing. "Northwest. Looks like, yeah, it's one of ours. P-47. Relief ripples through the convoy. The American fighter bomber circles once, waggles its wings in greeting, then continues on its patrol. It's a welcome reminder that you're not alone out here, that the mighty Allied war machine surrounds you, even if you can't see it." The convoy reforms and continues. You switch places with Davis, letting him take the wheel while you try to rest. But sleep won't come. The adrenaline from the bridge incident is still in your system, keeping you wired despite your exhaustion. Around 1800 hours, the convoy reaches a crossroads. According to the maps, the supply point is still another 20 miles ahead. But as the lead truck approaches the intersection, gunfire erupts from a farmhouse about 300 yards away. The convoy scatters, trucks diving for cover behind hedgerows and buildings. You hear the distinctive ripping sound of a German MG-42 machine gun, followed by the crack of rifle fire. Someone screams, a driver hit. You and Davis bail out of your truck, grabbing your carbines. You take cover behind the engine block, the safest part of the vehicle. The firing continues, bullets whining overhead and thudding into the ground around you. "What do we do?" you shout to Davis over the gunfire. "Sit tight," he yells back. "Let the infantry handle it." But there is no infantry, just truck drivers with basic weapons training, armed with carbines and a few Thompson submachine guns. The convoy commander is organizing a response, directing fire toward the farmhouse. But truck drivers aren't assault troops, and everyone knows it. The standoff continues for 20 minutes. The German fire slackens occasionally, then intensifies. They seem to have at least one machine gun and several rifles. Not a large force, but enough to halt the convoy. Then, from the east comes the rumble of heavy engines. 2 Sherman tanks appear on the road, their massive bulk a welcome sight. They must have been operating nearby and heard the gunfire. The lead tank commander confers briefly with the convoy commander, then both tanks advance toward the farmhouse, their 30 caliber machine guns chattering. When they're within range, the lead tank fires its main gun. The 75mm shell strikes the farmhouse with a thunderous crash, collapsing one wall in a cloud of dust and debris. 2 more shells follow in quick succession. Then silence. After a few tense minutes, figures emerge from the rubble. 3 German soldiers, hands raised in surrender. The brief battle is over. The convoy regroups. One driver has been wounded, a bullet through the shoulder, but not seriously. A medic treats him, and he insists on continuing to drive. His truck has several bullet holes in the cab and a shattered windshield, but the engine is undamaged. "Damn Krauts," mutters a driver as you pass the captured Germans. They're being loaded onto a jeep by the tank crew, presumably to be taken to a POW collection point. "Don't they know they've lost already? Maybe nobody told them," another driver responds. You study the prisoners as you drive by. They're young, one looks barely 17, and filthy, their uniforms caked with dust from the collapsed building. They have the dazed, hollow-eyed look of men who have been fighting too long, sleeping too little. Not so different, you realize, from how you and your fellow drivers must appear. The convoy continues, now with a tank escort. The presence of the armoured vehicles is reassuring, but it's also a stark reminder that you're operating in what is still essentially a combat zone. The front lines are fluid, with pockets of German resistance scattered throughout the liberated territory. Darkness falls as the convoy approaches the supply point. Blackout driving again, the familiar routine of cat eyes and careful spacing. But tonight feels different. The incidents of the day, the collapsing bridge, the German ambush, have heightened everyone's nerves. Every shadow might hide an enemy. Every unexpected sound causes fingers to tighten on steering wheels. The final approach to the supply point takes you through a shattered town, a place that has clearly seen heavy fighting. Buildings are reduced to rubble, craters pockmark the streets. The wreckage of both German and Allied vehicles sits where they were destroyed. The smell of cordite and decay hangs in the air, even inside the cab of your truck. "Jesus," Davis whispers, "what happened here?" You have no answer. This is the reality of the war you're supporting, this devastation, this total destruction. The trucks of the Red Ball Express roll through the aftermath, bringing the supplies that fuel further advance, further fighting, further destruction. At the supply point, a collection of tents and trucks on the outskirts of the ruined town, the atmosphere is tense. The sounds of combat are much closer here, artillery exchanges clearly audible in the near distance. Occasionally, the horizon flashes with the light of explosions. Your truck is quickly unloaded, the artillery shells whisked away to waiting guns. Almost immediately, it's reloaded with empty shell casings and damaged equipment bound for repair depots in the rear. The Red Ball Express runs both ways, bringing fresh supplies forward, carrying spent materials and wounded men back. 10-minute break, then we head back, the convoy commander announces. We'll take a different route. Intelligence says the road we came in on might have been compromised. You take the opportunity to relieve yourself behind a shed, then grab a cup of coffee from a field kitchen. It's bitter and lukewarm, but the caffeine is welcome. Your hands are shaking slightly, you notice, from exhaustion, from the lingering effects of adrenaline, from the constant stress of the road. A medical jeep pulls up nearby, unloading wounded men from the front. They're bandaged, bloodied, some moaning in pain. Medics work quickly, triaging the casualties, administering morphine to those who need it. These men will be loaded onto trucks from your convoy for the return journey. The trucks that brought ammunition forward will carry broken men back. "Hey, driver!" a voice calls. It's a medic, a harried-looking man with blood on his fatigues. Give me a hand here. You set down your coffee and move to help. The medic is struggling with a stretcher bearing a soldier with bandages covering most of his face. Together, you lift the wounded man and carry him to one of the trucks in your convoy. What happened to him? You ask the medic. Artillery, the medic says grimly. Shell landed right in their foxhole. He's the lucky one. Rest of his squad didn't make it. The wounded soldier moans softly as you secure his stretcher in the truck. His one visible eye opens, focusing on you with difficulty. We pushing them back? He asks, voice barely audible. Yeah, you tell him, not knowing if it's true but feeling he needs to hear it. We're pushing them back. He nods slightly, then closes his eye again. You rejoin Davis at your truck. He's checking the engine, a flashlight held between his teeth as he inspects the fan belt. How's it look? You ask. He removes the flashlight. Holding up. That vibration's still there though. Something's not right with the front end. We'll get it checked when we get back to base, you say, knowing it might be days before that happens. On the Red Ball Express, you keep rolling until something breaks catastrophically. Everything else is secondary. The convoy prepares to depart. You'll be driving tonight with Davis trying to sleep. The return journey will be just as dangerous as the inbound one, perhaps more so. German forces know the Red Ball Express is the lifeline of the Allied advance, and they target it when they can. As you climb into the cab, you notice that the truck behind yours is being loaded with wounded men. 6 stretcher cases, plus several walking wounded who sit among the stretchers, holding on to whatever they can for stability. These men are depending on you, on the Red Ball Express, to get them to field hospitals where they can receive proper treatment. The convoy moves out at 2100 hours, headlights extinguished, running on blackout lights only. The ruins of the town give way to open countryside. Ahead lies a night of difficult driving, possible enemy contact, and the ever-present challenges of weather and terrain. But the Red Ball Express rolls on. It must. The entire Allied advance depends on it. As your truck navigates the darkened road, following the cat eyes of the vehicle ahead, you reflect on how much has changed in just a few days. When the Red Ball Express began, it seemed like a straightforward, if demanding, transportation operation. Now you understand it's much more. It's a lifeline, a crucial artery feeding the Allied push across Europe. And you, a 19-year-old truck driver from Cleveland, are an essential part of it. The night deepens around you. Artillery flashes on the horizon. Somewhere ahead, the road winds through territory where danger may lurk, but the Red Ball Express doesn't stop. The trucks keep rolling through rain and mud, through enemy fire, through exhaustion that borders on hallucination. You adjust your grip on the wheel, focus on the cat eyes ahead, and drive on into the darkness. 2 weeks have passed since that first run on the Red Ball Express. 2 weeks that feel like 2 years. Your world has narrowed to the dimensions of your truck cab, the endless ribbon of road ahead, and the constant grinding routine of load, drive, unload, drive back, repeat. The vibration in your truck's steering has worsened. The mechanics finally diagnosed it, a bent tie rod, probably from hitting something on one of the countless bomb-cratered roads you've traversed. They've jury-rigged a repair, but parts for a proper fix are scarce. Like everything else on the Red Ball Express, your truck is being pushed well beyond its design limits. You're not at the wheel right now. You're sitting on an ammunition crate at a forward supply dump, waiting for your truck to be unloaded. The late September air has a new chill to it, especially in the mornings and evenings. The endless summer rain has finally let up, replaced by crisp, clear days and increasingly cold nights. Winter is coming, and everyone knows it will bring new challenges to the already demanding job of keeping the Allied armies supplied. Davis sits beside you, his eyes closed, snatching a few precious minutes of sleep. His face is gaunt, his cheekbones more prominent than they were 2 weeks ago. None of you are eating or sleeping enough. The schedule is too demanding, the work too relentless. Men are starting to break down just like the trucks they drive. You watch the activity around you with heavy-lidded eyes. Supply dumps like this one have sprung up all along the Allied advance, temporary depots where the Red Ball Express delivers its cargo and from which smaller vehicles distribute supplies to the frontline units. This one is larger than most, a sprawling operation of tents, trucks, and organized chaos. A group of infantry soldiers walks past, heading toward a stack of crates being unloaded from another Red Ball truck. They're filthy, their uniforms caked with mud, their faces hollow with exhaustion. One of them, noticing your Red Ball insignia, gives you a thumbs up. You nod in return, too tired for more acknowledgement. These brief interactions with the combat troops you're supplying have become a source of quiet pride. The frontline soldiers know how vital the Red Ball Express is to their survival and success. Without the constant flow of supplies, ammunition, fuel, food, medical equipment, the Allied advance would have stalled weeks ago. The Germans would have regrouped, counterattacked, and the war would have dragged on much longer. Wilson, Davis, Sergeant Harris's voice cuts through your fatigue-induced haze. You're loaded, time to move out. You nudge Davis, who jerks awake instantly, a skill all Red Ball drivers quickly develop. Sleep when you can, wake when you must. Your truck has been loaded with empty fuel drums and damaged equipment heading back for repair. The convoy is forming up for the return journey to the Normandy coast, where fresh supplies await for the next run forward. As you climb into the passenger seat, Davis is driving this leg. You notice how much more organized everything has become. In the early days of the Red Ball Express, there was a frantic, improvised quality to the operation. Now, 3 weeks in, systems have evolved, efficiencies have been found. The massive logistical challenge of supplying an army on the move has been refined into a well-oiled machine. The MPs directing traffic wear distinctive armbands with the Red Ball insignia. They've developed specialized hand signals for the convoys, keeping the trucks moving at optimal spacing. Refueling points have been established at precise intervals. Repair crews have forward operating bases to deal with breakdowns more quickly. Even the loading and unloading processes have been streamlined, reducing the time trucks spend idle. Your convoy pulls out 20 trucks in a precise line, maintaining their 60-yard intervals. These return journeys are somewhat less tense than the forward runs. You're moving away from the front lines back toward the relative safety of the rear areas. But they're no less essential. The Red Ball Express needs to maintain its pace in both directions to work effectively. Almost a month, Davis says as the truck settles into its rhythm. You believe it? We've been doing this almost a month. You nod, staring out at the passing landscape. The terrain has become familiar now. The rolling hills of northern France, the small villages with their ancient stone buildings, the forests and fields that are starting to turn with the first hints of autumn colour. It's beautiful country, or would be without the scars of war visible everywhere. Wonder how much longer it'll go on, you say. Davis shrugs. Till we reach Berlin, I guess. But you both know that's not quite true. The Red Ball Express was always meant to be a temporary solution to a specific logistical problem: how to supply the rapidly advancing armies when the normal supply infrastructure had been destroyed or overrun. Eventually, as the front stabilizes and railroads are repaired, the need for the massive truck convoy system will diminish. Already, there are signs of change. The Belgian port of Antwerp has been captured, though it's not yet operational due to German forces still controlling the approach. Once it opens, supplies will flow through there rather than all the way from the Normandy beaches. The French railway system is slowly being restored, section by section, and a pipeline is being built to pump fuel directly to the front, reducing the need for thousands of gasoline-laden trucks. The Red Ball Express will end, but not yet. For now, it remains the lifeline of the Allied advance. The convoy rolls on through the afternoon. The weather holds clear, making the driving easier than it's been in weeks. You doze in the passenger seat, lulled by the familiar rumble and sway of the truck. Around dusk, the convoy stops at a designated rest and refueling point. It's a converted farm, the fields now packed with trucks, the barnyard turned into a refueling station, the farmhouse itself serving as a command post. Mechanics swarm over the vehicles, checking for problems. Drivers queue for a hot meal from field kitchens, the first proper food most of you have had in days. While Davis takes care of the refueling, you wander over to the mechanics area. A staff sergeant named Mitchell is supervising the work. You've gotten to know him over the past weeks. He's been keeping your truck running despite the punishment it takes on the roads. "How are they holding up?" you ask, gesturing at the line of trucks. Mitchell wipes his hands on a rag, leaving fresh grease stains on top of old ones. About what you'd expect. These jimmies are tough, but they were never designed for this kind of use. Suspensions are shot, transmissions are failing, engines are burning oil like crazy. He shakes his head. We're cannibalizing parts from wrecked trucks just to keep the rest running. You nod. You've seen the salvage operations, the wrecked or broken down trucks being stripped of usable components before being towed to graveyards where they await more comprehensive repair, if they get it at all. What about replacement trucks, you ask? Heard anything about new shipments? Some coming in, Mitchell says, but never enough. For every new truck that arrives, 3 old ones break down for good. He looks at you curiously. Why? Your Jimmy giving you trouble? That tie rod, you remind him. Getting worse. Steering's getting really sloppy. He nods. I'll take another look before you head out. Might be able to tighten it up a bit, but what you really need is a new part, and those are like gold dust right now. As Mitchell moves off to check another truck, you notice a group of men in the distance, standing apart from the main activity. They wear the distinctive helmets of military police, but not the Red Ball armbands of the MPs who guide the convoys. These are regular army MPs, and they're questioning a driver from another company. You drift closer, curious. The MPs have a jeep parked nearby, and in the back are several crates covered with a tarp. One of the MPs lifts the tarp, revealing cartons of cigarettes, bottles of liquor, and what looks like canned food, all items that are strictly rationed and highly valuable. "Black market," a voice says beside you. It's Sergeant Harris. Caught him trying to sell PX supplies to civilians, damn fool. Black marketing has become a problem as the Red Ball Express has evolved, with trucks constantly moving between the supply-rich rear areas and the forward zones where civilians are desperate for goods. The temptation to skim a few items for illegal sale is strong. Most drivers resist it. The penalties are severe, and besides, there's a war to be won, but some succumb to the lure of easy money or the thrill of breaking rules. What'll happen to him, you ask? Court-martial, probably, Harris says. Dishonourable discharge at best, prison at worst. He gives you a hard look. Don't get any ideas, Wilson. You shake your head. Not me, Sarge. Harris's expression softens slightly. No, I don't think it would be. You're a good driver, Wilson. One of the best in the company. Keep it that way. It's the closest thing to a compliment you've ever heard from the tough sergeant, and it catches you by surprise. Before you can respond, he's moving away, barking orders at another group of drivers who are taking too long at the chow line. You find Davis at the truck. Mitchell has been true to his word. He's under the front end, tightening the tie rod as best he can without proper parts. Should hold for a while, Mitchell says, sliding out from beneath the truck. But keep an eye on it. Starts pulling hard in either direction, you stop and get it checked right away. Last thing you need is to lose steering at 40 miles an hour. You thank him, and he moves on to the next vehicle. There's never enough time, never enough parts, never enough mechanics, but somehow the Red Ball Express keeps rolling. Night falls as the convoy prepares to move out again. You'll be driving through the darkness to a large supply depot near the coast, arriving, if all goes well, around dawn. There you'll load up with fresh supplies and head back to the front, the eternal cycle of the Red Ball Express. This time, you're driving the first leg. The familiar routine begins again. Blackout lights, cat eyes, careful spacing. But tonight feels different somehow. The clear weather means you can see stars overhead, a rare treat after weeks of rain and cloud. The roads, while still rough, have been improved by constant use and maintenance, and there's a sense that the operation has hit its stride, that the Red Ball Express, born of desperate necessity, has matured into an efficient, effective system. About 3 hours into the night drive, you crest a hill and are greeted by an extraordinary sight. Spread out below, stretching for miles in every direction, are the lights of trucks, hundreds, perhaps thousands of them, their headlights making rivers of light that flow across the darkened landscape. "My God," Davis murmurs beside you. "What is that?" You slow slightly, trying to make sense of the scene. Then understanding dawns. They've lifted the blackout restrictions in the rear areas, you say. Those are Red Ball convoys heading in both directions. It's a breathtaking sight, the full scale of the Red Ball Express revealed in a way you've never seen before. In the blackout conditions under which you normally operate, each convoy feels isolated, alone in the darkness. But here, illuminated against the night, is the true magnitude of the operation. A vast, coordinated movement of men and machines, all working toward the same goal. "Hard to believe we're part of something that big," Davis says quietly. You nod, feeling a swell of pride. The Red Ball Express is more than just trucks and drivers. It's an artery pumping the lifeblood of war to the front lines, and you're a part of it, a small but essential component in a machine that's helping to win the war. The moment passes as your convoy descends the hill, rejoining the flow of trucks heading west. The blackout restrictions will resume closer to the coast, where German air activity, while diminished, is still a threat. But for now, you drive with headlights blazing, a luxury after so many nights of straining to see in near darkness. The drive continues through the night. Around 0200, you switch places with Davis, settling into the passenger seat for a few hours of fitful sleep. The rhythm of the road is so ingrained now that you can sleep through all but the worst bumps and turns. You wake as dawn is breaking, the first pale light revealing a landscape shrouded in fog. The convoy has entered the coastal region, where the morning mist rises from the channel and blankets the land. The trucks have slowed to a crawl, visibility reduced to mere yards. "Hell of a fog," you mutter, straightening in your seat. Davis nods, his face tight with concentration as he peers through the windshield. "Been like this for an hour, can barely see the truck ahead." The fog brings its own kind of tension. In the poor visibility, it's easy to lose track of the convoy, to miss a turn, to drift too close to the edge of the road. And there's always the nagging fear of ambush. Even here, relatively far from the front, German infiltrators or stay-behind units might be operating. But the convoy pushes on, the drivers using every trick they've learned over the past weeks to maintain formation and direction. The cat eyes of the truck ahead are barely visible through the swirling mist, but they're enough to follow. Finally, around 07:30, the convoy reaches its destination, a massive supply depot near Cherbourg. The fog is beginning to lift as the morning sun strengthens, revealing the scale of the operation. Huge stacks of supplies stretch in every direction: ammunition, fuel, rations, medical equipment, all organized by type and priority. Dozens of ships are visible in the harbor, unloading their cargoes onto the docks. This is the starting point of the Red Ball Express, where the journey begins for the millions of tons of supplies that flow to the front. The trucks offload their return cargo, empty containers, damaged equipment, occasionally wounded men, and immediately begin loading fresh supplies for the return journey. There's no real rest here, just a brief pause in the constant movement. You and Davis take turns using the latrine, gulping down some hot coffee and checking the truck. The mechanics have marked your vehicle for more substantial repairs, but that will have to wait. The front lines need supplies now. As your truck is being loaded with ammunition, artillery shells stacked carefully in wooden crates, you notice a group of newly arrived drivers being briefed nearby. Their replacements fresh from the States, their uniforms still crisp, their faces unlined by fatigue. They listen wide-eyed as a veteran driver explains the realities of the Red Ball Express. "Remember," he's saying, "this ain't no Sunday drive. You keep those trucks moving no matter what, rain, mud, or krauts. The whole damn war depends on it. You watch them, remembering your own first days on the Red Ball. Was it really only 3 weeks ago? You feel decades older, seasoned by thousands of miles of dangerous roads, by close calls and near misses, by the constant pressure of knowing that lives depend on your cargo arriving on time." "Poor bastards," Davis murmurs beside you. "They have no idea what they're in for. They'll learn," you say, "same as we did." Your truck is loaded and ready to go. The convoy is forming up for the return journey to the front. Another cycle of the Red Ball Express is beginning. As you climb into the cab, you glance at the western sky. The cleared fog has revealed heavy clouds building on the horizon. More rain coming, more mud, more challenges. But the Red Ball Express doesn't stop for weather. It doesn't stop for anything. As long as the Allied armies are advancing toward Germany, the trucks will keep rolling. Davis settles into the passenger seat, already preparing for a few hours of sleep before his turn at the wheel. You start the engine, listening to its familiar rumble. Despite the rough treatment, despite the thousands of miles of bad roads, your Jimmy truck is still running, still doing its job, just like you. The convoy moves out, heading east once more, toward the front lines, toward the fighting. The endless cycle continues. Load, drive, unload, drive back. The rhythm of the Red Ball Express. As the coast recedes behind you, the first drops of rain begin to hit the windshield. The weather is turning, and with it, the season. The summer campaign is giving way to autumn operations. The easy days of dry roads and warm nights are ending. The real test of the Red Ball Express, maintaining supply through the mud and cold of fall, perhaps even the snow and ice of winter, is just beginning. But one day at a time, 1 mile at a time, one delivery at a time. That's how the Red Ball Express works. That's how wars are won. Not in single dramatic battles, but in the steady, relentless effort to keep the men and machines at the front supplied and fighting. You adjust your grip on the wheel, ease the truck into its place in the convoy, and drive on into the gathering storm. November 1944. The landscape has transformed since those first frantic days of the Red Ball Express. The lush greens of summer have given way to the muted browns and greys of late autumn. Bare tree branches reach toward leaden skies. Morning frost coats the grass and muddy roads, melting reluctantly as the weak sun climbs above the horizon. You're sitting in the cab of your truck, hands wrapped around a tin cup of coffee. The engine idles, its warmth a blessing against the morning chill. Davis is outside, conferring with the convoy commander. Through the windshield, you watch your breath form small clouds that dissipate slowly. Everything is slower now. The pace, the loading, the driving, the headlong rush of August and September has settled into a more measured rhythm. The front lines have stabilized somewhat as the Allied advance encounters stiffer German resistance, their backs against their homeland, and the supply situation has evolved dramatically. The Red Ball Express is winding down. It won't end completely for another week, but already the system is scaling back, routes closing, drivers being reassigned. The Belgian port of Antwerp is finally operational, providing a much closer supply point to the front than the Normandy beaches. The French railway system has been largely restored, with trains now handling much of the cargo that trucks carried during the summer campaign. And a pipeline for fuel, the most critical and dangerous cargo, now stretches from the coast to near the front lines. Davis climbs back into the cab, bringing a fresh gust of cold air with him. He rubs his hands together, then reaches for his own coffee. "What's the word?" you ask. "Last run," he says simply. "This is our last run on the Red Ball." You nod slowly, absorbing the news. It's not unexpected. Many drivers have already been reassigned to other transport units, to quartermaster companies, even to combat units in a few cases. The Red Ball Express accomplished its mission. It kept the Allied armies supplied during the critical months of the breakout and pursuit across France. Now, other systems are taking over. Where are they sending us, you ask? Davis shrugs. Don't know yet. Scuttlebutt says some of us might get assigned to the White Ball Express. That's the nickname for the supply route running from Antwerp. Others might go back to regular transport corps duties. You sip your coffee, contemplating this change. After 82 days on the Red Ball Express, it's hard to imagine any other assignment. The Red Ball has been your life. The constant driving, the danger, the camaraderie, the vital importance of the mission. The convoy forms up one last time, 15 trucks now instead of the 40 or 50 that made up the early convoys. Your truck, still the same Jimmy that's carried you thousands of miles across France, has finally received proper repairs. The bent tie rod has been replaced, the engine tuned, the brakes adjusted. It runs better than it has in months, just in time for the operation to end. This final cargo is mostly medical supplies and winter clothing, heavy coats, boots, socks, gloves for troops at the front facing the onset of winter. Not the dramatic ammunition and fuel deliveries of the early days, but no less essential for the men who'll soon be fighting in snow and freezing temperatures. The convoy rolls out at 800 hours, heading east one last time. The roads are better now, repaired, widened, properly marked. Military police still stand at key intersections, still wave the Red Bull trucks through with priority, but the desperate urgency of the summer has faded. You drive the first leg, with Davis beside you. Neither of you speaks much. There's a strange melancholy to this final journey, a sense of an era ending. The Red Ball Express has been more than just a job. It's been a mission, a brotherhood, a vital contribution to the war effort. Its conclusion marks a significant milestone in the campaign. The landscape rolls by, familiar after so many journeys along these same routes. You recognize certain buildings, curves in the road, distinctive trees. The scars of war are still visible everywhere. Shattered villages, burned vehicles, fields pockmarked with shell craters. But signs of recovery are appearing too. Farmers working their fields again. Villagers rebuilding homes. Children playing in streets that months ago were battlegrounds. Around noon, the convoy stops at a refueling point that's been in operation since the early days of the Red Ball. The sergeant in charge recognizes many of the drivers. "Heard this is the last run," he says as you fill your truck. You nod. "That's what they tell us." He looks thoughtful. "Hell of a thing you boys did. Don't think the brass ever expected it to work as well as it did. 12,000 tons a day at the peak. 400,000 tons total. Never been anything like it." The numbers are staggering when laid out like that. You knew the Red Ball Express was big, knew it was important, but hearing the totals puts it in perspective. 400,000 tons of supplies delivered over 82 days, the lifeline that kept the Allied advance moving. "Couldn't have done it without good fuel," you say, nodding at his refueling station. He grins. "All part of the machine, driver. All part of the machine." That afternoon, the convoy reaches its final destination, a supply dump near the Belgian border. The area is well established now, with proper roads, organised storage areas, and permanent structures replacing the hasty, temporary setups of the summer. As your truck is unloaded for the last time, you stand to the side, watching. The efficiency of the operation is impressive, a well-choreographed dance of men and machines that has been perfected over nearly 3 months. The Red Ball Express evolved from a desperate improvisation into a model of military logistics, a system that moved mountains of supplies under the most challenging conditions imaginable. "Wilson Davis," Sergeant Harris approaches, clipboard in hand. "Got your new orders?" You and Davis exchange glances. This is it, the next chapter. You're both being assigned to the 514th Transportation Truck Company, Harris says. They're operating in support of the 9th Army up near the German border. He looks up from his clipboard. "It's good duty, regular hours, proper quarters when you're not on the road. Not like this circus." There's a hint of wistfulness in his voice. For all its hardships, the Red Ball Express has been a unique experience, one that has forged deep bonds among those who participated. "When do we ship out?" Davis asks. "Tomorrow morning. Truck's going back with a replacement driver. You two are on a transport truck to Belgium, then joining your new unit." Harris hesitates, then extends his hand. "You both did good work here. Best damn drivers in the company." You shake his hand, surprised by this uncharacteristic display of sentiment from the tough sergeant. Davis does the same. "Thank you, sir," you say. Harris nods briskly, then moves on to deliver orders to other drivers. The moment of emotion passes, but its impact lingers. From Harris, such praise means something. That evening, the Red Ball drivers gather in a mess tent for a final meal together. The atmosphere is subdued but not somber. There's pride in what's been accomplished, satisfaction in a mission fulfilled. Men exchange addresses, promise to look each other up after the war, share stories of memorable runs and close calls. The company commander, a captain who's been with the Red Ball since its inception, stands to address the group. "Gentlemen," he begins, "tomorrow the Red Ball Express officially ends. Many of you are being reassigned to other transportation units. Some will be going back to your original outfits. A few might even find yourselves in combat roles as this war enters its final phases." He pauses, looking around the tent. "Whatever comes next, I want you to know that what you've done here, what we've done together, has been extraordinary. When the history of this war is written, the Red Ball Express will stand as one of the great achievements of American logistics. You kept Patton's tanks rolling, you kept the infantry supplied, you delivered 400,000 tons of vital material over some of the worst roads and in some of the worst conditions imaginable." The tent is silent, every man listening intently. "I've been in the army 15 years, the captain continues, and I've never seen anything like what you men accomplished. Never seen such dedication, such determination to complete the mission no matter the obstacles. You should be proud. I know I am. A murmur of approval runs through the assembled drivers. The captain raises his coffee cup. To the Red Ball Express, he says, and to all of you who made it work. The Red Ball, the men echo, raising their own cups. After the meal, you and Davis walk back to your tent. The night is clear and cold, stars sharp against the black sky. Your breath forms white clouds in the frosty air. Strange to think it's over, Davis says. 82 days. Feels like years. Yeah, you agree. Wonder if we'll ever do anything this important again. Davis is quiet for a moment. Then he says, I've been thinking about after the war, I mean. Thought I might get into trucking. Commercial, you know. All this experience ought to be good for something. You nod, considering it. Not a bad idea. Lots of rebuilding to do after this is all over. Gonna need trucks for that. What about you? Davis asks. Going back to your uncle's gas station? Or maybe something else. The war has changed you, opened your eyes to possibilities you never considered before. Might go to college on the GI Bill, engineering maybe, learn how to build these trucks instead of just driving them. You both fall silent, contemplating futures that still seem distant but are slowly taking shape as the war progresses, as victory becomes not just a hope but an expectation. Back at the tent, you prepare for your last night with the Red Ball Express. Tomorrow brings new assignments, new challenges. The war isn't over, far from it. The hardest fighting may still lie ahead as Allied forces push into Germany itself, but a significant chapter is closing. You lie on your cot, listening to the familiar sounds of the camp settling for the night. In the distance, artillery rumbles, a constant reminder that while the Red Ball Express may be ending, the war continues. Men are still fighting and dying. The supplies you delivered are still being consumed in the desperate struggle to defeat Nazi Germany. Sleep comes easily after so many months of exhaustion. Your last thoughts before drifting off are of roads, endless roads stretching across France, crowded with olive-drab trucks bearing the distinctive Red Ball markings, the highways of war that you've travelled so many times, delivering the means of victory to the men at the front. Morning dawns clear and cold. Frost coats the tent canvas, making it stiff as you pack your few belongings. Most of your personal items fit into a single duffel bag. Uniforms, toiletries, a few letters from home, the sparse possessions of a soldier on the move. Davis is similarly efficient, his bag packed and ready in minutes. Together, you walk to the convoy marshalling area, where a transport truck waits to take you and several other drivers to your new assignments. Your Jimmy truck sits nearby, being checked over by its new driver, a fresh-faced replacement who looks barely old enough to shave. You walk over, feeling a strange reluctance to leave the vehicle that's been your home for so many weeks. She pulls a little to the right when you hit the brakes, you tell the new driver. Nothing serious, just something to know. The young driver nods eagerly. Thanks. Anything else I should watch for? You could tell him so much about the precise amount of double clutching needed when shifting from second to third gear, about the small leak in the radiator that needs checking every morning, about the way the windshield wipers slow down when the engine is under load. But those are things he'll learn on his own, just as you did. The relationship between driver and truck is personal, developed through thousands of miles and countless hours. Just take care of her, you say instead. She's a good truck, got me through a lot. The new driver nods again, clearly a bit overwhelmed by his assignment. I will. You give the Jimmy's fender a final pat, then walk away. It's just a truck, mass-produced, replaceable, one of thousands. But it's also been your partner in an extraordinary mission, and leaving it behind feels significant. At the transport truck, you find Davis already settled in the back, sitting on a bench with other Red Bull drivers. You climb up and join them. The canvas cover overhead provides some shelter from the cold, but the open back of the truck offers little comfort for what will be a long journey. As the transport pulls out, you take a last look at the Red Bull Express camp. The rows of tents, the stacks of supplies, the lines of trucks, all soon to be dispersed, reassigned, relocated as the logistics system evolves to meet the changing needs of the war. The Red Bull Express was never meant to be permanent. It was a solution to a specific problem: how to supply rapidly advancing armies when normal supply lines couldn't keep up. It served its purpose brilliantly, delivering far more tonnage than planners ever expected, keeping the Allied momentum going during the critical months after the breakout from Normandy. Now, with the front line stabilized and new supply routes established, the emergency measure gives way to more sustainable systems. But what the Red Bull accomplished won't be forgotten, not by the armies it supplied, not by the commanders whose strategies it enabled, and certainly not by the men who drove its trucks through danger and exhaustion to complete their vital mission. The transport truck rumbles down the road, heading northeast toward Belgium. You settle back against the hard wooden bench, prepared for the uncomfortable journey ahead. Beside you, Davis has already dozed off, his head nodding with the motion of the truck. You envy his ability to sleep anywhere, anytime, a skill honed through months of grabbing rest in 30-minute increments. Your thoughts drift as the truck rolls on, back to Cleveland, to the family waiting for your return, forward to whatever assignments lie ahead in this war that still has months to run, and inevitably to the Red Bull Express itself, to the roads travelled, the dangers faced, the mission accomplished. In the grand narrative of World War II, the Red Bull Express might seem a minor detail compared to the dramatic battles and strategic decisions that shaped the conflict, but wars are won not just by brave men charging enemy positions or generals plotting on maps. They're won by supply lines, by logistics, by the unglamorous but essential task of getting the right materials to the right place at the right time. For 82 days in 1944, the Red Bull Express was the lifeline of the Allied advance across France, and you were part of it. One driver among thousands, one truck among thousands, yet integral to an operation that helped change the course of the war. The transport truck continues northeast, carrying you toward your next assignment. The war goes on, the front lines push slowly toward Germany, and behind them the vast machinery of modern warfare rolls forward, supplied and sustained by systems that evolved from the Red Bull Express. You close your eyes, lulled by the familiar motion of the truck. Sleep comes easily after so many months of exhaustion. In your dreams, you're back on the road, behind the wheel of your Jimmy truck, following the cat eyes of the vehicle ahead, delivering the supplies that an army needs to fight and win. The Red Bull Express has ended, but its legacy of determination, ingenuity, and sheer logistical achievement will endure long after the guns of World War II fall silent. And with that, close your eyes and drift off to sleep.